I got to experience what it is like to train in a Dagestan training camp and a Georgian training camp. Today I'm gonna tell you my experience training in both. Daily I get the question, how can I join a Georgian training camp? How can I join a Dagestan training camp? But more often than not I get the question, which one is better? That is of course a pretty difficult question to answer. At the beginning of the video I'm going to tell you the differences between a Georgian training camp and a Dagestan training camp. Then I'm going to explain how you can join those training camps. And then at the end I'm going to give you my opinion in which one I think is better. But first let me give you some context on my experience. I went to Dagestan at the end of October. I went there alone and I stayed there in a house all by myself. I had a guide, Merab, who would bring me to the gyms where I would be able to train with real Dagestanis. My wrestling was not that good. It's still not good, but it was an amazing experience. I ended up making a YouTube series about it, which has now been seen over 50 million times on all platforms. To follow that up, a couple weeks later I went to Tbilisi, Georgia, and once again I had the opportunity to train with the locals, this time with Georgians, and I even ended up wrestling against a Georgian Olympic wrestler. Let's start with the differences. Travel. I'm not sure where you are in the world, I'm in the Netherlands. For me, flying to Georgia is a lot easier. Due to current sanctions, traveling to Russia and to Dagestan has been made a lot more difficult, so Tbilisi is just a lot more accessible and easier to fly to. That is just a fact, that's not an opinion. Of course, maybe it's different from the country you're staying in, but for me, and I think for most of the world, Georgia is just a lot more easier to go to at the moment than Dagestan. Accessibility. I was in Makhachev and in Tbilisi. Both are cheap, both have an airport, so that's not too difficult. However, the big difference for me was that in Dagestan nobody could speak English. I don't speak Russian. If you speak Russian, it of course makes a difference already. I don't speak Georgian as well, but in Georgia some people could speak English, so it was a lot easier to communicate over there. Both have nice restaurants, it's not too expensive, they have nice museums, a lot of fun activities to do. So once you're there, there's not a lot of a difference, it's just the language barrier which makes it a lot more difficult. In terms of cons, I think for Dagestan the problems is the electricity. Once you're there, there's sometimes problem with the electricity. I only had it the first night that I was there, but I just didn't have any electricity the entire night, which is not ideal. And then because of the sanctions, I couldn't access my money. So that was also a pretty big problem, but you can circumcise that by bringing cash and then you can exchange it there and then you have your money. It's just not easy. Like the money that you bring, that's the money that you have. So that's a little bit difficult. For Georgia, I would say it's the traffic. The traffic is awful at night. It usually takes twice as long to get somewhere. So I would go to training, let's say at 7, I would have to leave at like 5:30 or something because I was pretty far away from the gyms. So it's something that you have to really plan ahead. It just takes a hell of a lot longer than what it usually should take. You might not only want to do training, you maybe want to travel, you want to see the city. There's a lot of things to think about when going to a training camp. Usually you don't train 10 to 12 hours a day. Planning ahead. For both countries you have to plan ahead. You can't just show up, go to a gym and be like, hi, I'm gonna train here. That's just not how it works. You have to plan ahead and that can be a little bit difficult to do. Joining training camps is usually the easiest way to do it. However, it can bring some difficulties as well because not all of them can be that trustworthy. We have an entire world filled with combat sports, but still people only go to Thailand because it's the easiest way to train. It's already organized, people can go there and you know it's gonna be fine. Training in different countries, you don't know what you're gonna get yourself into. It's not as set up, which makes it a lot more difficult. And I think that's a pretty big shame. The reason that I'm making this video is because I keep getting messages daily from people that want to go to Dagestan, that want to go to Georgia, that maybe want to go to different countries to train, which is not easy to organize with a training camp and especially for if you just want to go by yourself, which is practically impossible. And because I just kept getting these messages, I thought maybe I can be the person that can solve this problem. So I came up with an idea. It's not going to be easy, but I want to make training combat sports around the globe accessible. That's why I'm going to be setting up global fight camps. Through there, I'm going to be setting up training camps all around the globe, which means that you can train in your dream destination. It's still in its early stages, I'm still trying to figure everything out, but I've already set up my first training camp in Georgia with gymnasia. If you saw my Georgia series, you know that they have a beautiful facility in Tbilisi. And they told me that they were interested in setting up a training camp. And after talking to them and hearing their ideas, I decided that it fits perfectly into global fight camps. I have added the link to Global Fight Camps in the description. At the moment it's just a landing page. There's a link and you can click on there and then you go to the Georgia Fight Camp and then you can also leave your email. If you fill that in, you will get more information from when the rest of the fight camps will launch. At the end of the day, I'm setting this up so that training all around the world becomes more accessible to you. So that's why I also have a question to you. Where would you like to train? think about BJJ in Brazil, judo in Japan, boxing in Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan, wrestling in Georgia, of course. Like, let me know in the comments what you would like, and then I'm gonna try and organize that in the future. I really want to set something up that benefits you guys. The amount of messages that I get of people that say that I'm living their dream in training in these countries and doing it, I just don't want that to just be a dream, and that it's not just me who can do that because I maybe have a following and it's something that I can organize. I want to just set up the best training camps possible so that you guys can do it as well. So let me know in the comment, and hopefully I can one day turn that dream into reality. The training. Both warm-ups are insanely long. Where I train, warm-up is something that you just kind of do. You just do a warming up and then you start training. But they take warm-up seriously. That can take up to 20 or 30 minutes before the training even starts. The level is insanely high in both places. But of course that will also depend where you train. You can go to the best wrestling gym in a random country and then to the worst wrestling camp in Dagestan, and Dagestan is still somehow gonna feel worse. At the end of the day, it fully depends on picking the right gym and the right training partners to surround yourself with. Both focus heavily on technique. However, in Georgia the training felt a little bit more high pace, and in Dagestan a little slower. Like you could train maybe 2 or 3 times a day, which they also do. In Georgia there was more of a quick, rapid pace. Which training camp should you choose? I already somewhat elaborated on it, but you can't just show up at a gym and start training there. You just have to plan it ahead. Doing that through training camps is of course going to be the easiest way, like I just said. I already have made an entire YouTube video on how you can join a Dagestan training camp, so watch that after this if you haven't already. But a training camp will usually take care of everything: hotel, transportation, food, activities, but most importantly access to gyms, because that's why you're there at the end of the day. And should you one day pick a training camp from Global Fight Camp, I'm gonna make sure that everything about that is going to be included, so don't worry about that. But my recommendation is that you pick a training camp where you can also train with the locals, because that's not always the case. The coach will usually always be local, but maybe not the people that you train with. Some training camps have only the people from the training camp involved there. So you just train with the people that fly in that week and you just train with them. I think that's somewhat of a shame. I understand it for beginner camps, but if I train in a different country, I also want to train with some of the locals. I want to see what it's like, and I think that's a really important thing as well. You can do drills with everybody, that doesn't really matter, but some of the best experience I've had so far training in different countries have been training with locals. It's just something completely different. It's amazing. So do your research, make sure that you can also train with locals. At Global Fight Camps, I'm gonna make sure it's included. It just has to be, in my opinion, but it's not everywhere, so do your research. So which training camp should you choose? In my opinion, it's not that black and white, because it fully depends on you as a person, what you can and what you cannot do. If I have to tell from my experience, I wouldn't necessarily go to Dagestan if I was a beginner. If I wasn't really good at wrestling, or I was maybe an MMA fighter or something like that, going to Dagestan is a pretty hefty investment. And if you don't know how to wrestle, you don't have to go to Dagestan to learn. It's really cool and it's a fun experience, but I would become a little bit better before going to Dagestan. With Georgia, because it's a lot more accessible, it's less of an investment to go there. So in that case, for a beginner, Georgia would be a lot better. But then again, that can depend on the person as well. I'm just speaking from my experience. And before I tell you which, in my opinion, is better, at the end of the day, it's down to you. Like I said, you just have to choose for yourself. You have to maybe make a list in what you think is important. Accessibility, in my opinion, is really important. If I train somewhere, how easy is it to train there? How easy is it to get into the country? How easy is it to organize? Of course, like you saw, you can go to Dagestan. I think it was amazing. It's to this day just the coolest thing that I've ever done. And I'm really happy that I did. And maybe one day I will go back to Dagestan. I don't know. It fully depends. Khabib and Makhachev, please call me. I really want to go to Dagestan with you. Like, let me know. Both have their merits, but both also have the difficulties. And let's hope one day I can take some of the difficulties in organizing it away from you guys, that you just know that the moment you book a trip, that you know it's going to be good, and you know it's going to be trustworthy, and that you're going to have an amazing experience. And now the big question, which is better? Once again, it's just really hard to say. You can look at the numbers. At the last Olympic Games, Dagestan-born wrestlers won 3 gold medals. Georgia had 1, but Georgia still has 21 Olympic medals in wrestling all time. But if I look at it from my own perspective, which is better to train in for myself, Tbilisi just offers a lot more accessibility, amazing training, an amazing city. You can either train in Tbilisi or in Gori, which is the main wrestling hub in Georgia. And with Makhachev, it's just an experience of a lifetime. There's nothing that compares to it. Like I said, just the coolest thing that I've ever done to this day. Every day when I'm in a gym or even on the street, I've had people come up to me and they're like, oh, you're the Dagestan guy, you know, and it's just a really cool thing to have done. Let's say hypothetically you can train at the top gym in Georgia and at the top gym in Dagestan. I don't think there's going to be much of a difference. Both of them are just the best of the best, and I don't think there's going to be much difference over there. But if you look down, I think it's going to be easier to find a good wrestling gym in Dagestan. But it is a lot more difficult to go to that gym, which means that in Georgia it's easier to train at a good gym. But then that means that in Georgia there's going to be worse gyms, so you need to try and avoid them as well. At the end of the day, both of them are really good at wrestling. It's just finding the right gym or the right training camp for you. So either find a good gym which you can get in contact with, or find a training camp that you find trustworthy. Just be careful with who you book and how you book, and just make sure that you're not wasting your money on something that's not going to be worth it at the end of the day. If you want to know more about global fight camps, like I said, at the moment it's just Georgia. Go to the website, give me your email, and then I will keep you up to date. Also give me some suggestions on where I should set up training camps, which countries, what sports. And then a kind of specific question: if you've already been to a training camp somewhere in the world, you've trained combat sports somewhere in the world, let me know your experience in the comments. I want to know what it was like. Did you have any problems? Was it good? Was it bad? Because unfortunately I've already heard some bad stories, and I kind of want to know if there's maybe some things that I don't even know about, and it's really interesting for me to know. So let me know that in the comments as well. I'm going to have a new series next month, so you have to be a little bit patient, couple weeks, and then we're gonna have something really cool. See you next time. Woes!